Hello world! Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Dorsey here today on the Bonsai Balcony. It is our July 4th weekend, and that can only mean one thing. It's time to do, well, first of all, it's time to give Frida her due. That can only mean one thing. It's time to put a treatment through our trees. What am I talking about? Well, last January, I think it was January, it usually is around January when I do this, I do a two-part treatment, systemic treatment to my trees. And what that means is I take a small amount of a very hairy chemical and I add it to a large quantity of water, stir it in real good, and then after I've already watered my trees, I water them through with this solution. And that solution will then be taken up by the roots and go through the trees, and a lot of potential nightmares go away with the application of this chemical. You want to wear gloves. You want to make sure that you wash everything that you use to mix or anything that you use. You want to make sure you rinse your watering cans out really good. All of that stuff. But it's not to fool around with. But it is also something that I kind of deemed as necessary because I had the fear of God put in me a couple of years ago. And that was brought on by a lot of things I didn't know. When I got into bonsai, I looked at how much I had to learn and went, well, you don't even know how much you have to learn. That's how much you have to learn. And so I decided to go on let's just wait and see what bites us in the butt system. Don't be scared. Don't get scared. Just go on let's see what we have to learn and then learn about that. And sometimes you find that when you're just looking, well, it still looks good so far, I'll continue to do nothing. When that finally does bite you, you may find that you're going through an awful lot of information in a hurry, trying to figure out what it is that you've done, or the tree has done, or nature has done, or whatever happened that has been done to cause this. Because your tree just went from something you only had to water to something that now looks sick and you don't know what to do. In this case, I had an ailment that was going across several different species at the same time. So, and it was causing issues. Now, things that I hadn't learned about. I hadn't learned about prevention. And I also hadn't taken the time to learn about feeding. I had pines, but I didn't take the time to learn about when we feed and when we don't feed Japanese black pines. I had other trees, and I didn't know if they had a feeding season or a non-feeding season. I'm afraid that if I subject these guys to fertilizer, they may stretch out really long or lose their bonsai thing, and I don't know how to fix that if the tree doubles in length or something, or adds a third from the ground to the first limb. Then it looks like a giraffe, not a tree, and would you cut it in half then? I mean, what would you do? So I was letting that thought bubble keep me from doing anything. And what I would eventually learn is that fertilizers, you use certain fertilizers, and maybe if you're worried about blooms or if you're worried about this other stuff, go low dose all the time. A little low dose all the time. I also was told never to fertilize trees that aren't 100% healthy. That's confusing. I don't think you should tell beginners that. Sometimes that keeps them from fertilizing things that need to be fed. Later they get weak and tired, and then they go, well, now it's sick, I definitely can't fertilize it. So with that in mind, when these guys started taking ill, I started pounding the books, figuring out what I had done wrong. And I didn't necessarily get a handle on which bad guy it was. But what I did get a handle on was there are things that you do to prevent your trees from getting sick. And the first and foremost, is not my chemicals. This is a video about how to keep your trees healthy. And part of that is the line I've drawn in the sand that I'm willing to take, the measures I'm willing to take to keep my guys healthy. For me, that's a rough chemical twice a year. A lot of people will say no moss to that, but there will be other measures that they will take that's equivalent, be it organic, be it mojo, be it whatever it is. They're going to do something to address the same things that I'm doing. They just go about it a different way. And for me, this was the good way to learn first. If I find out something that's just as good but organic later, I'll go to it. But right now, I don't want to risk this over some granola girl attitude that isn't quite totally me anyway. I'm all about the air and the water and all that, but also I'm all about flu shots and vaccines and all that other stuff. So there's a place for all of it, and that's kind of, once you lose something or afraid you're about to lose something, you find that you're a little bit more willing to go in guns a-blazing, and then once it gets taken care of, maybe we can back off from that a little and see what, if any, was unnecessary. That was kind of what happens once you see trees start looking sick and ill. The main prevention, which is where I was going before my systemic treatment, the main prevention of illness is healthy trees. You keep your trees healthy, you may not see the same kind of situation that absolutely startled the heck out of me a couple of years ago. So healthy trees are your best prevention, and that means the right amount of water, the right time, watering them all the way through, feeding them when they want to be fed. Failure to do that, and your trees will get weak. And the trees will get weak, and something that humans are just totally unaware of, they will change their smell. And the predators will smell that weakness. I'm not speaking metaphorically. This is actually biology. And that's what lets them in. It's our letting the health get a tick off. So when that happens, then you've got trees that are weak, then they've got predators. Then the predators are moving in, and that allows them a foothold to spread on perhaps weaker parts of stronger trees that otherwise wouldn't have had an issue. That's how you find out that you've got a lot to learn. And for me, that ended up being my extreme, was that I learned a lot about fertilizing, and from that point on, I made sure that when guys needed fertilizing, they were getting fertilized. For me, that's some trees all year round. If it were fully developed, I would probably back off because I don't want to keep it overgrowing. I want to, right. But these guys that we're developing, they're going to be fertilizer all year round. These pines, they have their own regimen, and I've done quite a few shows on when we do and when we don't fertilize our pines, and I will continue to do those. I just repeat that information over and over and over again because people are coming and going to this and all other networks. So that's just the kind of, once you realize that's what's happening, you see the need. So first and foremost, keep your trees healthy. On top of that, you'll go a long way towards keeping everything nice and healthy if you take measures. And for me, the measures were a systemic treatment. What a systemic treatment actually means is you take your watering can. When it comes time to water, you water your tree thoroughly just like you normally would. While it's there now and wet, now let's say it's January. We're learning this lesson, so we're going to start seemingly in January. If we're just now learning this lesson, we can start today at the midway point too. But this will start. The new year starts a new systemic treatment. So what we'll do is we'll water the tree all the way. Through. Now that the substrate is good and wet, I will measure the amount. I will make an estimate, or I will know the amount of volume that the pot that the tree is in holds. In this case, it's less than a gallon. It's half a gallon. So on the gallon measurements, and I would be using a teaspoon of this per gallon. in a 1-gallon container. So this would get a half a teaspoon in that container, and I would water until it goes all the way out the bottom, and I know that I've watered it all the way through. That is on substrate that I've already watered. So it's just going to get coated with this new treatment, and it'll take that up. We won't water it again until the next day or something. So that'll have a chance to work its way into the tree, and it will continue to work its way through the tree, and that will keep off just a lot of stuff that can go through your vascular system of your tree, or other kind of sniffles that can come. And it just takes out a lot of stuff and is a good hedge against disasters. In 2 weeks, we do that again. I said this is a twice-a-year treatment, but I consider doing it once and then doing it again in 2 weeks to be one treatment. So that would be beginning of year, one treatment. Mid-year, for me, I made it July, 4th of July weekend. That way I would remember that it was time. And it's time. So by the end of the day, I will have taken both of my large containers. All the big guys are going to get more or less a teaspoon of that per gallon. This guy will get a healthy teaspoon per gallon. I don't want to overdo it, but that's over a gallon, obviously. And that's over a gallon, obviously, but I'm not going to just go tripling that stuff. The stuff is still strong. So rather underdose a little rather than make it thick. It's not a child of the 70s kind of mentality when it comes to this stuff. But that's basically it. If I do this will keep off a lot of the borers or a lot of the other things that can come in. This will also keep a lot of things that eat the foliage or the needles or all of that. All of this stuff is just going to then become no grata are going to become hands off. We'll say that, are going to become hands off to a lot of the things that we would consider predators, and we can march on through now till through the rest of the summer and fall, knowing that we've taken good countermeasures, and that also we're taking really good care of our healthy trees. And also just basic good bonsai practices are that other thing that the lessons that we're learning. So especially on the bonsai balcony, I try stuff, and sometimes we learn that's not the way to go, But we've also done some really, really cool stuff, and I've also tried some stuff and found out that I was accidentally doing just the right thing at just the right time. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that as a practice, but it's fun when that happens. That's about it. I just wanted to tell you all not to feel like you're killing the planet if you take some medicinal measures for your plants. Sometimes we need a little hedge and resistance against the outside world and its predators. Just because our trees are confined and are in smaller pots and are more susceptible to heat and cold and everything else, that doesn't mean the predators that they face are. So yeah, I was able to feel a lot better about what I was up against, and I wasn't flying so much in the dark when I started taking my own countermeasures. And I went from something that I'd allowed to happen by going basically 2 years without doing anything, and then I got out of it, and we just started looking better and better and better ever since. So I couldn't recommend enough learning about your feeding and learning about your not necessarily your systemic treatments, but your countermeasures for pests, and whether you're going to go a pesticide route or what kind of route you're going to go for that, and know what you have in your area that you have to deal with. And it's not just that, but it's to making sure that your trees are always in a really healthy state. So those guys, whenever they come through your neighborhood, they'll pick on somebody else instead of your garden. Like and subscribe if you guys have not already. I'm just kind of showing off the green and how lush everything's looking out here in the sun. We will do Saturday Night Live bonsai tonight. We've almost figured out how to do that. So tonight, later tonight, we will be doing Saturday Night Live bonsai. Stick check back in with us for that. And I appreciate you, and Frida appreciates you, and Thank you so much for watching.